We are live. Hello there. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. My name's Lee Hayward, and I want to welcome everybody aboard for the first day of summer, our first official video chat of summer 2024. And hopefully we have a darn good one. And thankfully, we've been having some good weather here in Newfoundland where I am too. It feels like summer, and I've been getting out and enjoying it. And hopefully you've been doing the same in your neck of the woods. So as you're popping onto our live stream here now, I just want to make sure that this is coming through. All the audio is good, the video is good. Make sure it's coming through loud and clear on your end, because that's the most important thing. I mean, this video chat is for you. Hopefully it is coming through on your end. And I just want to let you know that, all right, we got Lee joining in. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So it's coming through loud and clear. Good stuff. That's what we want. So the way these video chats work, I always do my little introduction, for people who are brand new to the video chats. The way these video chats work is I'm going to hang out here for the next hour answering questions and topics of discussion that you have related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges you may be going with regards to your workouts, with regards to your nutrition, building muscle, losing fat, anything along those lines. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window. And we are streaming through YouTube as well as Facebook. So I'm streaming it through my personal profile page, as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding page and the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. So wherever you're tuning in from, you should be able to interact. On YouTube, there's a chat window to the side. On Facebook, it'll be down in the comment section below the video. And I do encourage you, if you're brand new, interact. Let me know. Like, if this is your first time tuning into a video chat, let me know. Just type it there into the comment section. In fact, let me know where you're tuning in from. All right, we have Robert is joining in. I know Robert's a regular to our chats. Welcome back. Glad to have you joining us. We have Mike joining in, coming through loud and clear. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you as well, Mike. Glad to have you joining in. Excellent. So let me know where you are tuning in from. And it's always nice to know, because we do have an international audience, right? I mean, obviously a lot of people from North America, but we get a lot of people from Europe. We get some people tuning in on Saturday mornings over in Australia and New Zealand and those types of places. So wherever it is you're tuning in from, we got Mike joining in from Philly. Welcome. We have Scott. This has been a long time since I've been on a chat like this, from Florida. Well, welcome back, Scott. Always glad to have you joining in, whether it's for a first time or first time in a long time. It's all good. Glad to have you joining us. Excellent. And another thing that I wanted to address too, before we actually get into your questions, we have Gladiator joining us. Hello, all, Mr. Gladiator. Love the helmet, actually. I actually have a helmet like that. I'll talk more about it later. But one thing that I do want to address, and I know a lot of the regulars already know this, but we have the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast, which is now on, I think, 6 episodes published online. We just recorded our 7th episode. I think it's 7. I'm losing track. 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. I'm not sure if it's 6 online and we recorded the 7, or if it's 7 online and we recorded the 8th. One or the other. But anyway, the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast has been going really well. I mean, it's still early on. I mean, we're still in the single-digit number of episodes, but the feedback has been great. A lot of people really enjoying the content. And this week, for our upcoming podcast, we have special guests joining us. And that's something that I'm really trying to put a lot of effort into and make this a good quality podcast, and really cover some practical tips and strategies for real world health and fitness. And what I mean by that is taking average guys who've achieved above average results and featuring them and sharing what they've been doing as far as their eating, exercise, and lifestyle habits, and how they've made this transition and made it an enjoyable part of their lifestyle. That's what this is all about, right? It's not trying to overcomplicate things or bog you down with too much detail and nitty-gritty blah, blah, blah. It's about practical, real-world action steps that you can start implementing immediately and utilizing to get better results from the time you spend exercising and the time you spend with your fitness program. That's what it's all about. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to check out the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. We're on most of the major podcast platforms. It's on iTunes, it's on Amazon, it's on Spotify, and it's on a bunch of these other smaller podcast platforms that I didn't even know existed till I started looking for podcast platforms. But I've added it to most of the major platforms. So whichever one that you like to use for listening to podcasts, make sure to subscribe to Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding. And if you search for that in Google, Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding Spotify, or Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding iTunes, or whatever, it should pop up in the platform that you are looking for, that you use. Of course, it's also on YouTube, which I know a lot of people use YouTube for watching podcasts. I like YouTube because you get the video as well as the audio, which most podcast platforms is just an audio. But I like to have YouTube because you get the video, and a lot of times I do share video or images, and you get the visual aspect of it as well. So it's not just a bunch of talking heads, but a lot of times we'll share photos or videos or charts or references to back up whatever it is that we're talking about, to just add the full presentation element to it. But of course, if you prefer listening to just the audio, maybe you're out for a run or out for a bike ride or at the gym, and you like to listen to podcasts in the background, this is a good one to add to your list for sure. And I know that the other day I was actually at the gym, and one of the guys pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, I'm listening to your podcast right now." He said, "I love the show." So, hey, that's cool, right? I really appreciate that. So if you haven't already done so, check out the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. Links down in the description below this video. And I'd appreciate any feedback or suggestions or topics for future episodes. Like, we're open to ideas. This is obviously geared towards helping you get the best results possible. So if there's any specific topics that you would like to see covered in a future podcast, feel free to let me know. We're open to suggestions. All right, let's see who else we have joining in here. Anthony is joining in from Boston. Tony Moore, Boston. I guess that's the city, or I'm not sure where it is, but I'm familiar where Boston is. Welcome. Glad to have you joining us. We have Boris joining in. Welcome. Glad to have you. We have Mike. Okay, I think this is the first question of the day. We'll jump right into it. And of course, that's the way these work. If you have any questions or topics of discussion that you would like to discuss, type them into the chat. So Mike is asking, is breaking down muscle fascia via self-massage with a tennis ball on your back, for example, or foam rolling, important for muscle growth? I'm going to share my personal experience with that. I have never been a big foam roller or massage, like what you're talking about, trying to break up the fascia and stuff with massage techniques. Now, I have done it occasionally, and usually I do it if I'm having any issues or problems, but I've personally haven't really gotten into it a lot myself. I do a lot of mobility work. I obviously do my strength training and my cardio, and I do a lot of flexibility work, but I haven't really personally gotten into a lot of these different massage. Like, I don't have one of those vibrating massage guns that looks like a drill with a like a jackhammer drill or whatever you see some people using. I mean, because I've got a YouTube channel, I've had a whole bunch of these massage guns or whatever they call them, people reaching out, "Oh, we'll give you a free massage gun if you do a video promoting it." And I say, I don't want one. I don't. It's like, if I honestly use it, I'll give an honest recommendation. But I mean, I haven't gotten into that stuff. Not saying that it's useless. I mean, some people probably have them and probably love them and get good results from them. But I'm just sharing. I mean, you asked for my opinion on it. Like, I personally don't use it. So is it critical for muscle growth, or is it essential for muscle growth? Heck no. You don't need to do that to build muscle, right? You need to train in a progressive overload fashion. You need to consume adequate nutrients from getting your adequate protein intake, your adequate caloric intake, adequate rest and recovery. Like, all that stuff is needed for muscle growth. Massage, it's into the nitty-gritty detail stuff. It's, if you're feeling sore or you're having some pain or discomfort, then yeah, you might want to look into it. But it's not required for muscle growth. Absolutely not. All right. It'd be interesting. I'm just curious, now that we're kind of bringing this up, who else, like, do you use any of these massage tools, like one of those massage guns, or you're into foam rolling, or the massage balls and all this kind of stuff. Like if you find it helpful, please feel free to share your opinions and feedback into the comments section there. Right. I mean, just because I don't use it personally, I'm not saying that it's it's useless. It's just I haven't used it. All right, what else? Another question there. Will high doses of omega-3s help with tennis elbow joint pain and inflammation? It can indirectly. Now, it's not like a pill for an ill. Like you're not going to go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I got a pain," and he's going to prescribe you omega-3s. But indirectly, it can help because it provides the essential fatty acids, and omega-3s are one of the most essential fatty acids that we need, and it's also one of the most neglected fatty acids because the average person is not consuming enough omega-3s through their diet unless you're eating a ton of like wild fatty fish like salmon and mackerel and herring and things like that. You're not getting enough omega-3s in your diet, right? It's very hard to get enough, so supplementation is almost a must if you want to get adequate omega-3s. I personally supplement with omega-3s. I take high potency fish oil capsules 2 to 3 times a day. So at breakfast, midday, and with my dinner, I usually have the omega-3s. And I find that it's a good supplement to take for overall health and wellness, but it also can help with your joints. It helps to reduce inflammation, and those omega-3 fatty acids can also help with joint health. Now, if you have joint pain, there's other things you might want to look into as well. One thing that I found helpful, collagen. Collagen is an excellent supplement to take for joint and cartilage. I personally use collagen on a regular basis, and I found that it made a noticeable difference for me. Glucosamine, chondroitin, some of these supplements can help. Turmeric is another one that helps with reducing inflammation. I mean, some of these can certainly help, but omega-3s, you can certainly add it to your list of supplements. It's not only good for joints and inflammation, but it's an overall health and wellness supplement, right? There's a lot of positives to it, a lot of positives and virtually no negatives. So I would certainly consider it. All right, let's see what else we got there. We have John joining in. Ever have any encounters with frozen shoulder? Been out of upper body workout going on for 2 weeks now, seeing a chiropractor and massage. I personally have not had frozen shoulder, but I know of people who have, and it's been very painful and frustrating and limits mobility. And, it can certainly throw a monkey wrench into your training. One thing that I do recommend, I mean, I've had aches and pains and strains in the shoulders, especially the rotator cuff, usually from lifting too heavy, especially with exercises like trying to bench press too much weight. I've also had shoulder injuries back when I used to do martial arts, especially when I was doing some jiu-jitsu a while back, getting in different submissions and arm bars and kimuras. And next thing you know, there goes the shoulder. So I've had some shoulder injuries over the years, but I've never had the frozen shoulder, so to speak. But one thing that I do find helpful is I have a routine, a mobility routine that I do prior to all of my workouts. And actually what I'll do is I'll just see in your there. I'm going to share the link to that. Just give me a second. Now I'm going to dig that up. Where is it? If you do a search for Lee Hayward rotator cuff, it should come up. I've got a bunch of different rotator cuff / mobility workouts, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to share a couple that I have. One, here's a rotator cuff. I say rotator cuff, but it basically is the whole shoulder complex. Shoulder mobility video, I'll call it, and I'll just type it into the chat. So that's one that you can check out. There's another one I did using just resistance bands, and this was a video that I made for one of my coaching students who was training from home, only had resistance bands and needed some shoulder exercises that could be done at home with resistance bands. So I'm going to just share that link in there as well. So shoulder resistance band video. Boom. So you can go check those out. And again, if you want to just search for them, if you search like Lee Hayward shoulder workout, Lee Hayward rotator cuff. Like, you go in on YouTube and search for those, it should pop up into the search engine. Or, of course, you can go to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding channel and just scroll through my videos. But there's a lot of videos there. There's literally over 1,000 videos on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. So you could spend quite a bit of time watching. Now, a lot of them lately have been these Q&As and podcasts, but there's a lot of instructional videos there as well. All right, another question here from Boris. I'm planning to train twice a day, cycling in the morning and doing some weights at night. Any recommendations? That is fine, but the only thing you need to pay attention to is your recovery. A lot of bodybuilders would do a similar type of training structure where you do weight training and cardio. When I was getting ready for bodybuilding shows, that was a typical day, right? I would usually do cardio in the morning and then weight training in the afternoon. Now, you could switch it up if you wanted to do weights in the morning and cardio in the afternoon. That's fine as well, but I just prefer to cardio in the morning, weights in the afternoon. And I did that pretty religiously, as part of my contest prep. And the whole idea, the way I structured it back then, was the weight training was the priority. That's what took the majority of my effort and my focus. The cardio was supplementary as a fat burning tool. So I didn't have a strict structured cardio regimen. It was just a matter of doing it consistently. And most of the time it was lower intensity cardio, like just getting out for a walk. If the weather wasn't suitable for walking, then I would probably go to the gym and do cardio machines there. But it was long duration, low intensity cardio. It wasn't intense. It wasn't intervals or HIIT or sprints or anything like that. It was long duration. What they refer to now as zone 2. That's basically what I did for cardio. It was just punching in the time to maximize fat burning, maximize calorie expenditure. And of course, that was supplementary. The main focus was the weight training. Now, in your situation, it may vary because I don't know, maybe the cycling is the priority and the weight training is supplementary. Like, that's the way it is for me. Like, I've gotten into cycling a lot more serious in recent years. I mean, I've competed in several local cycling events. In fact, a few weeks ago, I did a gravel race and had a ton of fun. That was a lot of so I really enjoy cycling, and that's my number one fitness priority. And I'm using weight training as a supplementary form of exercise to balance out the weak links. Because anytime you do a lot of cardio, whether it's cycling or running or whatever, you're doing a lot of repetitive movements for certain muscles, but you're neglecting a lot of others. So I try to fill in the gaps with my weight training, especially like the upper back, the core, working on mobility and flexibility and all these things that are not getting directly hit with the cycling workouts. Like, the cycling is primarily legs and your cardiovascular system, but there's not a lot of, other things in there, but you do want to fill in the weak links. And in fact, our most recent podcast, the one that's up there now, myself and my co-host Jeff Samatero, we went into a lot of detail talking about how to combine cardio and weight training. That was the key topic. So the second half of that podcast, we really dive into some specifics, because Jeff is kind of in a similar situation as well, where he's training for a half marathon. And this is something that's totally new for him. And he's finding the challenges of balancing cardio and strength training, because you can't do it all. Like, you can't give 100% to all of it. That's what I'm saying. You can do it, but you have to modify it accordingly. And the way that I like to visualize it, and this is the example that I used in the podcast, was think of your recovery as if, like, you have 100 units of recovery, right? Visualize you have 100 units of recovery. How do you divvy up that 100 units among all your different exercises and activities? It's not like you have 100 units for cycling and 100 units for weight training and 100 units for sports or whatever other things you're doing. You have 100 units total. How do you divvy it up? So you can't go all out. You can't go 100% in both, right? You have 100 total. So maybe you do 50-50, have an even split between your effort, or maybe you want to prioritize the cycling and then supplement it with the weight training, or the other way around. Now, it really depends how you want to go about it, but it can be done, but you have to pay attention to your body's recovery and adjust things accordingly. So there's maybe days where you have to scale back the volume and the intensity of the cycling, or vice versa. Scale back the volume and the intensity of the weight training. And this, it really depends on you, your individual fitness level, your work capacity. I mean, obviously it will increase over time, but you will have to adjust accordingly. I mean, some days, if you're pushing the limits, you're going to feel extra exhausted, extra tired, and you're just not going to have the strength or stamina to get out on the bike, or the strength and stamina to push it hard in the gym. So on those days, maybe you just scale it back and do like a really easy bike ride, or maybe even just not even go for a bike ride, just go for a walk on those days, something really low intensity, just like active recovery. Same thing with the weight training. Some days you're going to feel strong and be able to push it. Other days you're just not going to have it. And that'll be a day for just mobility work or some light isolation work or things like that, things that are not going to drain your body, but it's going to help to add to your overall program. Like maybe work on some things that you normally don't prioritize. Like, for example, on a day when I want to do weight training, but I'm feeling tired and I need an active recovery day, I'll probably do like forearms and abs and calves and mobility work and stretching and things that are still important, but are not going to stress my body and cause it to break down and to get even more overtrained, if you will. I try to balance it out. So I'll do easier workouts, which are still important on those days when I'm just not feeling it. And then on the days when I am having lots of energy and I know, hey, this is a good day, right? I got a lot of energy, full of piss and vinegar. Let's go. Those are the days where I'll do the big, heavy compound lifts and push myself and, maybe try to hit a personal best or something like that. But when you're combining multiple forms of exercise, you just had to be careful to divvy it up amongst those exercises. And of course, prioritize whatever it is that's most important for you. But again, I recommend go and checking out the most recent episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast, because that's what we basically did a full hour-long episode diving deep into this topic. All right, let's see what else we got there. Neil's joining in. Second now. It says, is it effective if you go all the way to failure or just 3 reps shy of it? I mean, it is also worth to reduce the work set, but going to failure rather than more volume, but 3 reps shy. All right. This is my opinion on the whole failure. Like, there's a lot of videos and a lot of people talking about, oh, you train to failure and you do, like, if you don't train to failure, you're not going to stimulate muscle growth. Or some people say, well, you want to train to so many reps in reserve. And there's a lot of people make this way more complicated than it needs to be. The bottom line is you have to have some form of progressive overload. That's it. Like, whether you go all the way to failure or not, as long as you're having progressive overload, you're still going to make progress. Like, even if you are stopping a few reps shy of failure, but you're gradually increasing the workload over time. So you're increasing the weights you're lifting or the reps you're doing or the volume you're doing, you're getting some sort of progressive overload where you're forcing your body to do more than it did before, getting better than it was before. You're going to make progress. Like, even if you don't grind it out to failure, you can still make progress. And the thing with failure is, sure, in that moment, you're providing maximum muscle stimulation. Like, it's as much effort as the muscle can physically exert, right? You're hitting momentary muscular failure. But it's like walking a double-edged sword. It's like that razor's edge, because sure, you're maximizing muscle stimulation, but you're also maximizing your risk of injury, because that's when muscles can tear. That's when, if something goes wrong, it can go wrong bad, right? So you got to look at the bigger picture. If you get injured, that's going to hold you, that's going to set you way back more than any potential gain of that repping up to failure would produce. Like, I'm going to put it in perspective. If you do an easy workout, is that going to slow your progress? In the greater scheme, no, because you can always go back the next day and do a harder workout or train again the next day. If you skip a workout, is that going to hinder your progress? I mean, it's certainly not going to help skipping a workout, but is it going to hinder it? No, because you can always go back and train the next day. Even when it comes to your nutrition, like if you have a crappy day of eating, you cheat on your diet or you don't hit your macros or whatever, is that going to screw up your progress or set you back? In the greater scheme, no, because you can always get back on track for your next meal or the next day. So all these things, even though they're not helping, they're all very easily solvable. Like you can just get back on track the next day. If you push yourself to the limit or beyond the limit and you get injured, so you're repping out to failure in the bench press, and then all of a sudden you blow out your rotator cuff, or you tear a pec, or you're doing heavy squats or heavy deadlifts and you're repping out to failure and you're grinding out that last rep, and then you throw out your lower back or something like that. That's going to set you back. Like, okay, you maximize muscle stimulation in doing so, but that injury is going to set you back because you're not going to bounce back the next day. Depending on the degree of the injury, I mean, it could take weeks or months, or in some cases, you may never fully recover from it. So injury prevention is #1 priority over everything else. And that's why I'm not a big fan of pushing it to failure and beyond. Like, I will go to momentary muscular failure on exercises where it's safe to do so. And for me, that's usually machine exercises, isolation exercises, things where I'm in control of the weight and the risk of injury is very low. Like, I'm not going to rep out to failure with barbell squats. Like, I don't want to be having a heavy barbell across my back and be pinned down in the bottom with that load, and like either having to dump the bar off my back or have a spotter try and assist me and risk, throwing my back out or something, straining under maximum load. It's not worth it. Same with bench presses. Like, I'm not going to rep out to failure with bench presses anymore, because when you're strain, that's when pecs tear. And I know a lot of guys who have had torn pecs or blown out rotator cuffs and stuff like that. Like, these injuries do not fix themselves. Like, those are injuries for life. If you go on Google, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just type into Google pec tear, right? Google images, right? And you will see lots of deformed pecs. And like, that's what happens when you push to failure and beyond. Same with deadlifts. Like, I don't want to strain under maximum deadlift because the risk of, popping a disc in your lower back or something is just too great. Like, I don't want to push it. I would rather, in those situations, save a rep in reserve, right? Train hard, still train in a progressive overload fashion, but train to like 9/10 and make progress at 9/10 instead of going 10/10 all the way. And you can still do that. Like, one of my coaching students that I'm training now, he's been making exceptional strength gains in the gym, and we haven't trained to failure. Only on some isolation or machine exercises, we probably pushed to failure a few times. But all the heavy free weight exercises, he's never hit failure once. And every single week, we're making progressive overload. Like, we're adding an extra 5 pounds to the bar, or we're adding an extra set, or we're adding an extra volume or something. Like, we're progressive overload week after week after week. And he's been doing that for months in a row now and building up to some respectable weights, but he hasn't hit failure on any of those exercises, right? So you can still make amazing progress and stay injury-free and not beat yourself up by having a few reps in reserve. So that's my advice when it comes. Like, you don't have to kill yourself. You have to be good enough and good enough consistently. And stopping shy of failure is a great way to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not training hard or anything else. Like, you're still pushing yourself, right? It's not like a walk in the park, but it's just not grinding to the point where, you're doing a bench press and you're stapled to the bench yelling help, right? Hoping the spotter is going to come to your rescue. Like, it's okay to rack the weight on your own. And if you want to do extra, like if you want more muscle stimulation beyond that, well, do an extra set, right? Instead of grinding one set to absolute failure and beyond and risking injury, why don't you just do an extra set if you want to get that extra muscle stimulation? It's more total volume and it's a lot safer, a lot less risk of injury, right? So that's how I go about it. And that's the way I would recommend it as well. That's why I coach my students, right? And these guys are making great progress doing this. What else we got there? RM says, have you added any more equipment to your home gym? I love home gyms. Not really. I haven't added anything to my home gym in recent years. I've got a power rack with cable pulleys. I've got a PowerTech bench press machine, which is something, it's kind of similar to a hammer strength chest press, shoulder press. It has an adjustable bench, so you can go from decline all the way to upright shoulder press, and it has the independent handles, similar to like a hammer strength does. Got the leg extension, leg curl attachment, lat pull down, seated row attachment. So, I mean, I've got all the basics that I need, of course, like oodles of dumbbells and barbells, and an indoor rower and a stationary indoor trainer, the cycling trainer, that is. So, I mean, I've got the essentials that I need to get in a good home gym workout. But honestly, most of my strength training workouts I do at the gym. I just like the atmosphere of the gym. I like getting out of the house. I just like going to the gym, and it's not that far, right? It's literally like a 15-minute drive to get to the gym. So when I go to a workout now, 9 out of 10 times it's at the gym when I'm doing strength training. I mean, occasionally, yeah, I will do a home gym workout, but I haven't added anything in recent years because I've got all the essentials that I need to get in a good workout at home. I've invested in that over the years, and I've kept it. And I wouldn't want to go without a home gym. I love having a commercial gym as well as a home gym. It's like stacking the deck in your favor. Like you have no excuse, right? If you can go to the gym, get in a proper workout, but if you're really busy or the weather is crappy and you can't get there, or some reason the gym is closed, you got the backup, you got the home gym, right? So you're stacking the deck in your favor. You've got both options available all the time. Yeah. I did a lot of workouts. I mean, for my first 8 years of training, I did a lot of home gym workouts. Like I literally trained from a home gym for 8 years before I ever stepped foot inside a commercial gym. So I did my first 3 bodybuilding shows training from my basement home gym. Right now, this wasn't the same home gym that I have now. This was back in my parents' house. We had a home gym back then, but you can make great progress training from home. So, as long as you got the essentials and the desire, you can make it work. Going along with this, Scott saying, I lift at home alone in a home gym. Says, I have a beefy squat rack with safety arms, but fear failure face plant or bar missing spotter arms, even going sideways. Is there a way to properly fail? Don't go to failure. I think we already covered that one earlier. Just stop, like rack the weight on your own. Like honestly, I can probably count on my fingers the number of times I've squatted to failure in the last 30 plus years of weight training. I mean, the only time that I have squat to failure is back when I was competing in powerlifting and probably trying for a new record and basically missed the lift. That's my definition of failure. But if I'm doing repetitions, I always, once I do that rep that I know, okay, that was a hard rep. If I do another one, it's like 50-50 if this thing is going up. I don't know if it will. No, it's not worth it. I'll rack the weight. And if I want to do more, I'll do an extra set. Right? Like stop short of failure, rack the weight on your own. I do the same with bench presses, squats, shoulder presses. Like I very rarely ever rep out to failure with those exercises because the risk to reward is just not worth it, as I mentioned before. So what I would recommend, especially for anybody training at home, such as you, always use the safety bars and set them up at the right height. Like that is your backup. That's your insurance policy, if you will, but plan on never using them. Like just like your insurance policy that you have for your car or your home or whatever, you got it there as a backup and it's there because you need it, but hopefully you never ever use it, right? Same thing with those safety arms. Use them, have them there because they are your insurance policy, but hope you never need them. And don't plan on using them. Like don't purposely try and rep out to failure to the point where you're stapled to the bottom of the squat or bottom of the bench or whatever, and need to rely on those spotter arms to save yourself. All right, what else we got there? Robert is joining us. He says, is stretching, or should it be more of a priority in our training as we age? I think stretching is a priority, and it should be a priority from all ages, not just an old age, but unfortunately, like a lot of things, we don't appreciate it until we start to lose it. So as people start to get older, they lose their mobility, they start to lose their flexibility, then they realize, hey, I should actually start to work on this stuff. But personally, I think it should be something that's ingrained right from an early age. That's kind of the way it was for me, because like before I got serious into weight training, I was involved with martial arts, and they really emphasized stretching and flexibility work. So I did a lot of that from a young age, and I kind of kept that habit going as I've gotten older. But I definitely recommend prioritizing it. Now, how you go about it, there's multiple ways of going about it. Me personally, I like to do my stretching after my weight training. So it's part of my cool down routine. After I've worked out, then I'll take 5 minutes or so and stretch out the muscles that I just worked. Right? It's not a big time investment, but it pays off big time in terms of your health and your mobility and injury prevention. It also helps to aid with recovery. You'll feel so much better, when you do the stretching on a regular basis. So I do it after weight training, but you can throw it in at other times. Like if you want to do stretching on your off days, that's fine as well. But bottom line, do it somewhere, right? Do it somewhere. And I think it should definitely be a priority. It's one of the most neglected aspects of fitness. Like a lot of guys, they'll focus on the strength training. They'll give a half-ass effort to cardio, unless you're an endurance athlete, and then you give a lot of effort to cardio. But like most gym bros, it's all weight training, a little bit of cardio, and flexibility and stretching is like, blah. That's the afterthought, the last thing in their mind, where it should be all well balanced. Like you want to look at it almost like like each one is like the legs of a tripod. You want your strength, you want your cardio, and you want your flexibility and mobility. Like you want all of these things for full total fitness. It's not just one dimensional. Like, oh, I'm just weights, or I'm just cardio, or whatever. You want it all. All right, who else we got there? Thomas joining in from over in Dublin, Ireland. He says, hope you're having a good day. I'm from Dublin. Training is always a good thing, but your diet is either going to be your success or failure. I think you would agree. Again, I look at this as the legs of a tripod, right? Training's important, nutrition's important, the recovery is important. Like, it's hard to really say one is more important than the other, because they all play a big role. If I were to prioritize it, like let's just say we have someone who's brand new and they're not focusing on exercise or nutrition or anything, they're just like living a normal life, right? And they eat what tastes good, their exercise is just nothing, going to work and coming home, and they want to start focusing on some structured exercise, some structured nutrition, and actually taking care of their health and fitness and progressively improving their fitness. I would focus first on exercise. And I find for a lot of people, first off, the exercise is going to help to stimulate your body and help to provide that muscle stimulation that we need. Because even if you're not exercising, you're already eating. Granted, it's probably subpar nutrition, but you're already eating. So we don't need to add eating into a schedule, but we do need to add exercise into a schedule. So I would focus on the exercise first. And I find once people get the habit of exercise going, it increases the motivation to then want to follow it up with better eating habits. Because then once you're working out regularly, you say, well, wow, I'll actually get better results and I'll feel stronger and I'll recover better and everything else if I eat better. So it's like more motivation to follow it up. The opposite is rarely true. Like, oh, I'll start eating really healthy and hopefully that'll motivate me to go to the gym. It usually doesn't work that way. But going to the gym and exercising will usually help to motivate you to want to follow that up with better nutrition habits. All right? It's almost like, if you have a high performance sports car, are you going to put watered down fuel into that car? Or are you going to put high octane supreme fuel into that car, right? You're going to buy the best fuel you can. Same with all the other stuff. Like, are you going to put cheap oil into it? No, you're going to get the best oil. Are you going to put crappy tires on it? No, you're going to get the best tires on it. Like, if you have a high performance sports car, you're going to put high performance fuel and, parts and everything else. Like, you want to treat it like a high performance sports car. Same with your body. If you start treating it like a high performance machine, then you're going to want to fuel it like a high performance machine. Like, you wouldn't take your daily clunker, that you're going back and forth to work in and say, oh, well, I'm just going to start fueling this with, high octane race fuel and hopefully it'll be a better car. Probably not. You're just going to put whatever, the regular gas and the regular tires. And you're just like, yeah, it's only a clunker. It's only a get back and forth to work beater. I really don't care. The opposite is rarely true, right? So if you treat your body like a high performance machine, you're going to want to fuel it like a high performance machine, right? Just putting high performance fuel without treating it like a high performance machine rarely works. So if I had to prioritize one or the other, I would prioritize the training first, which I then think will help to facilitate better eating habits later on. But to get back to your question / comment, both are absolutely essential. And I think a lot of times guys will get the exercise component down before they get the nutrition component down, right? That's a commonality. Like you'll see a lot of people at the gym who work out regularly, but then their Achilles heel is the nutrition. They're probably eating enough, but they're probably eating too much of the not so good foods as well, especially like on the weekends and cheat meals and alcohol consumption and that kind of thing. Right? That's a common trend that I see a lot. But at least they're working out consistently. Right? Focus on what's going well, and then we can always improve. Rob's joining us. He says, good afternoon. I'm 52. I've been going strong for a year. Great growth, but thinking of a deload. Slight pains and plateaus starting. Don't recommend 50% sets and weights for a week. Don't recommend 50% sets and wait for a week. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Question mark. Or maybe he says, do you recommend? That's probably what it was. Bottom line, a deload is just you're scaling back your workouts. There's multiple ways to deload, right? Like it doesn't have to be like what you said, like literally, hey, I'm going to do half the sets or I'm going to do half the weight. That would be deload. But maybe you could do easier exercise variations. That's a variation of a deload. Like for example, instead of doing barbell bench presses, maybe you're just going to do a chest press machine. Instead of doing barbell squats, you're going to do a leg press or leg extensions and leg curls. You know, you can still work the muscles, but do so with easier exercises. That's a way of deloading. Obviously, you could cut back the frequency. So if you're normally training 5 or 6 days a week, how about we train every other day? Day on, day off, day on, day off. Like that's a way of getting in more recovery time. Basically, you want to think of deload as just scaling back. Like it's not stopping. I mean, you can almost look at it like a thermostat dial. Like we can dial it up or we can dial it back depending on what we want to achieve. So if you're feeling like, okay, I'm getting a bit overcooked, it's a bit too hot in here, I need to dial it back. I need to dial the temperature down a little. That's what it is. You're just dialing it down with your workouts. Maybe you're going to lighten the weight a little bit. You're not going to push as hard. You're not going to do as many repetitions. You're going to scale it back, or you're going to do easier exercise variations. There's a lot of ways of going about it. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but purposely do less than you were before and do that for a week or two until you start to feel your energy levels bounce back. And if you do this properly before you get into a deep overtraining state, usually a week of active recovery will be enough for most people. Maybe 2 weeks at most, but it shouldn't be any more than that. Unless you've been prolonged overtraining, where you've been pushing the limit day after day, week after week, month after month, like for a long time, really like redlining it with your workouts, and you got severe into overtraining. I mean, then you may need a prolonged break, but most people will not get to that stage unless they're like serious athletes or someone who's extremely motivated and dedicated to their training. Like the average Joe is rarely going to get to that level. They're going to get to what we call overreaching, which is what I would say you're at now, where you've been pushing it. Like say you've been going hard for the past year and you're starting to feel the point where, okay, getting a bit of pain, getting a bit of aches and pains and starting to feel like I'm just feeling the effects of overtraining starting to come on. Let's nip it in the bud now before it gets out of control, right? Like that's the phase that you're at now. So I think a slight deload would certainly work. How you go about it: 3 days a week in the gym tops. That's plenty, you know, like every other day or 3 days a week. And with your exercises, purposely stop short of failure. You know, like if go through the workouts with like warm-up weights, like sub-maximal weights. Like you don't need to push yourself to the limit. Just go through the motions with sub-maximal weights and just enjoy being there. Just enjoy going through the motions with your workouts. Like that's what a deload should feel like. It shouldn't be stressful. You should feel energized afterwards, not beat up. And that light, active recovery movement should really make you feel rejuvenated and refreshed. And it should also give your joints some recovery as well. Another thing I want to touch on with the joint pain, depending on what kind of joint pain it is, play around with different exercise variations, different hand positions, see if you can work around it. Because sometimes it may be like tendonitis, flare-ups. And I'll give you an example from my own personal experience not too long ago. I was having some elbow tendonitis, and I found when I would do like bicep curls, it would flare up. So if I did like a straight bar curl or an easy bar curl, it would hurt. But if I did a hammer curl with dumbbells and thumbs up grip, it didn't hurt. So for all my bicep training for several weeks, I just eliminated any curls with my palms up, and I did all my curls with thumbs up. Just changed the grip. So I did that instead, and that allowed me to work around the pain and allow those tendons time to heal up, so that now they're not bothering me anymore, and I can actually do proper curls with a like easy bar or straight bar, or supinated dumbbell curls, no problem. But for several weeks, I had to do hammer curls as my dumbbell curl or bicep curl exercise of choice, because I had to work around that tendonitis. You might find the same. Like if you have shoulder pain, for example, maybe try different exercise variations. Like maybe the barbell causes shoulder pain, but dumbbells don't, right? Because they allow more freedom of movement with your hand positions. Maybe certain machine exercises or cable exercises will allow you to work around any aches or pains that you're probably getting from free weights, right? So feel free to experiment and try different exercise variations to see what you can and can't do as far as working around pain. I mean, that's one of the best things. And that's the nice thing about joining a commercial gym, is because you have a lot of different equipment available. You don't have to just stick to basic free weight exercises. You can try different machine variations, different cable variations, and hopefully you'll find something that allows you to still work the muscle without aggravating the joints, tendons, and ligaments. So that's something you can try there to work around those pains that you're feeling. Ulterior Day says, I have tried cardio, waste of time for me. Lifting, I lost over 60 pounds and quit eating garbage. I still walk 3 hours twice a week. Well, walking 3 hours twice a week is cardio. So whether or not you consider it a waste of time, that's still good cardio. But there's something there. I want to touch on this, because there's a lesson to be learned here from a body composition point of view. And this is something myself and Jeff actually talked about in our most recent podcast. So again, I know I plugged it earlier, but if you haven't already done so, go back and listen to last week's podcast where we talk about combining weight training and cardio, because we did a deep dive into this. But I just want to highlight some of the things we discussed. From a pure body fat weight loss point of view, cardio alone may not be the best option for a lot of people. And I'm going to give you a real world example of this. Like if you go to any local endurance event, like go to a local race, a local marathon, local triathlon, local endurance event of some sort, you're going to see a lot of overweight endurance athletes. Even though they do a ton of cardio, they still have a layer of fluff for a lot of them. Now, some of them have a layer of fluff because they probably were really overweight and they're on their fat loss journey and they just haven't lost it all yet, right? That's different. But some of them have been like stuck at that weight for years. And the reason why is because a lot of endurance athletes, they have this mindset, well, I'm burning a lot of calories because I'm running so many hours a week, or I'm cycling so many hours a week, or whatever. I'm burning a lot of calories. I can eat whatever I want. And they do eat whatever they want, and they do a lot of cardio, but they stay stuck in a plateau where they're still at this soft, mushy body fat level, and they're not getting any leaner. Nutrition, hands down, is the most important thing. And that goes along with what you said there. You mentioned that you quit eating garbage, which obviously improved your nutrition. That's the key thing. The old adage of you can't out-train a poor diet certainly applies when it comes to fat loss. Now, does that mean the cardio is a waste of time? Absolutely not. I mean, it's still improving your cardiovascular system. It's still improving your heart health, improving your stamina and all that stuff. So it's still building the endurance. It's still building your aerobic engine. right? You can't eat yourself fit. Like, you can eat all the protein and vegetables that you want, but it's not going to improve your stamina and strengthen your heart and improve your endurance, right? You have to train for that. But as far as nutrition and fat loss, calories in, calories out is the most important thing when it comes to fat loss. So if you're looking for pure body composition improvements, this is the way I would prioritize it. Obviously, nutrition has to be number one, right? You got to be in a calorie deficit, and you got to be eating nutrient dense foods, right? You want to be focusing on your protein, your veggies, your healthy fats, being consistent there. As far as the exercise, I would prioritize weight training, because that's going to help to build muscle, which is also going to help to build your metabolism. I mean, the more muscle you have, the more fat you're going to burn 24 hours a day. And that's going to help to give you that recomp look. I mean, it's going to give you that lean, toned, athletic look to your physique. And then supplement that with cardio, right, to help aid with extra fat burning and extra calorie expenditure. And that's exactly what I did when I was competing in bodybuilding. It was nutrition, weight training, supplemented with cardio, right? That's the way I did it. It's not saying that cardio is a waste of time, but it's not the most important thing. Like, even if you just did the nutrition and the weight training, you could achieve an incredible body composition, but you're not necessarily going to maximize your endurance and stamina from that alone. So if you want well-rounded total fitness, i.e. total fitness bodybuilding, then you want to have all those elements in there, right? You want the endurance and you want the strength training, as well as following it up with proper nutrition. But you're absolutely right with that cardio alone is not going to get the results, right? And we see a lot of overweight endurance athletes who are using that as their excuse, right? I burn I burn so many calories doing cardio, so I can eat what I want. Yeah, not necessarily. All right, what else we got there? We have Rob joining in from North Carolina. Welcome, Rob. Glad to have you tuning in. Actually, Rob asked the question earlier. Okay, Rob was asking the question about the deload. Yeah, gotcha. And I have found machines are safer, and I use low weight, high reps. Absolutely. Machines are safer. For someone who's just getting started, I always recommend starting with machines. And then we can gradually start to transition into free weight and body weight and some more advanced exercises. But to get started, get your feet wet, so to speak, when you're joining the gym for the first time, machines are the easiest place to start, because the weights are balanced and stabilized and supported in the machine. All you have to do is push or pull against resistance. You don't have to balance and stabilize it. Once you've got that foundation, then we can gradually start implementing some free weight variations and focusing on building those stabilizer muscles and all the aspects that go along with it. But machines are the best way to start. We have Jason joining in. Says, how's it going, Lee? I'm camping this weekend and not tracking and eating what I want this weekend. Thumbs up. You know what? If it's an occasional thing, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you're not getting ready for a bodybuilding show, or you got some deadline where you got to be in shape by X date, it's okay to enjoy yourself from time to time. I would do the same thing. Like, heck, when we went camping last, I wasn't counting calories or tracking macros either. And there was, camp, food cooked over the campfires, and it was not necessarily the healthiest options, right? Not that I went out of my way to eat crap, but there was some fried food and everything else there, pan fried food over the campfire. I mean, if you do that, there's nothing wrong with it. But the kicker is get back on track for your very next meal, or as soon as you get back to your regular home-based situation. The problem with these little deviations is people let them spiral out of control. Like, they'll have their weekend of camping, and then they come back and they're like, oh, it's so hard to retransition back into it. And then they end up letting their nutrition slide then for another week or two before they finally start again. There's nothing wrong with deviating from your plan, but the kicker that's going to make or break your success is how fast can you start again. So, like, if you miss a workout in the gym, in the greater scheme of things, that's not a big deal. How fast can you get back in there and resume your training sessions, right? Ideally, do it the very next day. Same thing, like if you have a cheat meal, right? There's nothing wrong with having a cheat meal from time to time, but how fast can you get back on track? Like, can you get back on track for your very next meal or your very next day? Or in this case, right after the camping trip, right? Get back on track. The faster you get back on track, the faster you can start again, the faster you'll stay on track to making progress. The people who delay that starting again and they procrastinate with it and then I'll start again on Monday type of thing, that's a slippery slope, right? Because it can that procrastination, there's a lot of damage can get done in that procrastination, right? Learn to start again as soon as possible. And that's one of the strategies that will allow you to enjoy yourself when you have like a camping trip or, you're going out to a family dinner or holidays or whatever. You can still enjoy that stuff, but get back on track as soon as possible, right? That's the kicker. We have the Utopian Seeker saying, great advice. Thank you. You're welcome. Love the avatar. Classic shot of Franco and Arnold there. Right. The late Franco. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Another question just came through. It said, what about vigorous coitus for weight loss? If I could maintain 145 hours, I don't know if anybody can maintain 145 hours. My goodness gracious me. You need more than Viagra if you're going to maintain 145 hours. My God, like how many hours are in a week? Like, let's just say it all adds up. It's calorie expenditure, right? We'll leave it at that. Oh, this is heart rate. I thought you meant hours. All right, LOL. Yes, there is LOLs coming through. Okay, I've seen 145 HR. I figured 145 hours, right? I'm thinking, no, crepes. All right. Anyway, it's calorie expenditure. I mean, Christ, if you're in the moment, when you're having your private, intimate time with that special someone, I hope you're paying attention to something besides your freaking heart rate. Right? You should be paying attention to the other person. Oh boy. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, right? But let's just say it all burns calories. We're moving on. What's your opinion on resistant cardio, such as kettlebell training, for someone who's NP being out of the gym, who's being out of the gym? I guess that's what you mean, out of the gym for over a month, such as myself. All right, resistance cardio, kettlebells. Like, there's a fine line between what's strength training and cardio, and personally, I consider high repetition work, like I guess you're thinking like kettlebell swings or something like that. That's still in the lines of strength training. Granted, it's high volume strength training. Some people might want to call it metabolic conditioning, but I wouldn't call it cardio. Cardio is something you can do for a prolonged period of time. Like, you can go run for an hour or cycle for an hour or multiple hours. Like, it's long duration. That's cardio. Nobody's going to be swinging kettlebells for hours nonstop, right? It's still high volume strength training, right? High ball, like some people refer to it as conditioning training. Like, there's a lot of gray area here, like how you refer to it, but I would still classify that in the strength training category. Resistance cardio, I guess, like, if a true form of resistance cardio we could look at is what people refer to as rucking, which is becoming a lot more popular. Basically doing weighted cardio where you're doing walks and hikes with a weighted pack on your back. That could be considered resistant cardio. And a lot of people, there's numerous benefits to that. But I mean, bottom line, something's better than nothing, right? Like, you've been out of the gym for over a month. What I would recommend for the first week back, just start off like a beginner again. Like, literally go through a little beginner circuit routine, like a baby beginner circuit routine with the machines or something like that. Or if you have a structured program that you were following before, like, you could go back to doing it, but just go through it with very light weights. Like, literally go through it with warm-up weights, just to kind of build your body back into it again. Build the conditioning. Get used to being in the gym. Build the habit of exercise. That's the most important thing. And then each week from there, just be better than you were before. Right? You don't really need to overhaul everything or do something crazy new or whatever because you've been out of the gym. Like, you can still do what was working before, just do it at a scaled down, easier level. So if you were doing regular cardio before, you can still do regular cardio afterwards, just do it at a lower intensity, right? Lower speed, lower volume, lower intensity. Same with weight training, lower intensity, lighter weights, right? If even fewer sets if needed, just kind of go through the motions, and then each week just do better than you did before, right? Add an extra repetition, add an extra 5 pounds, like, and just build it up. And you'll find that you'll bounce back and regain your lost strength a lot quicker the second time around than it took you to gain it initially. Like the whole idea of muscle memory, that is a real thing, right? Muscle memory is a legit thing. Anyone who's worked out, had a layoff, and then resumed working out again, you will regain your fitness a lot quicker the second time around, assuming that it wasn't an extended, prolonged period. Like, oh, I used to work out back when I was in college, and then now you're 55 years old and you decided to work out again. Like, and you had a nice little 30-year gap in between or something, right? That's different. Like, that's massive deconditioning. But if it's like months or something like that, like I haven't worked out in a month or a couple months or a few months, you will regain your lost conditioning, your lost strength a lot faster the second time around than it took you to gain it initially. Right? That's the whole muscle memory. All right. Well, guys, we've just crossed the hour mark, and I'm going to get ready and clue it up. But thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, without your participation, there would be no show. So thank you for joining in, and hopefully you got some value from today's episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding live stream Q&A. And again, I just want to remind you that on Tuesdays, we have a brand new episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. And we have all the previous episodes posted up there as well. So if you haven't already done so, check that out. Make sure to subscribe to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date with all the videos and podcasts that we post. And if you are listening on other platforms, Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you can subscribe to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding channel, or through the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast through those podcast platforms as well. And if there's anything that you would like to discuss in more detail, like maybe you had some questions throughout the show here, if you would like to elaborate on any of those, feel free to email me, right? My contact information is down below. Feel free to reach out to me, whether you send me an email or Facebook message, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you. And if you need to, we can even book in for a strategy session call and see if we can come up with a realistic action plan that's right for you. All right, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. Thanks again for joining in. Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and have yourself a fantastic summer. I look forward to talking to you next week, same time, same place. Take care. Over and out.